Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. Not just any episode, a return. Ice storms isn't going to stop us. We tried to do our best, folks. We tried to overcome a couple of technical difficulties. Didn't manage to surpass it. Didn't manage to overcome it. But that's okay. We saw the expected. Derrick Lewis coming off a nasty loss to Sergey Spivak. Polar Bear, heavyweight division in totality is evolving. We'll talk about that in a moment because we got something large to talk about today. We talking about champ. We talking about champ versus champ. I'm talking about Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Lightweight champion versus featherweight champion. This is going to be a fun one, folks. And breaking it down with me, as always, is the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber himself. AJ, brother, the moment is upon us. We've been talking about it for a long time, but it's here. How are things, brother? How you living?
Derick, I'm living well. Now I'm living well that the power's back on. Life has turned back to a little bit of normalcy, but I noticed you left something out there, Derick. Pound for pound, number one versus number two as well. I don't know if it's as big of a hype. We'll talk about it later, man, but the UFC is making it a talking note. I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
You know what, man? I'm doing very well, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, because at the end of the day, it's like we're not talking about that enough. For me, I do think that these are some of the pound for pound best fighters, but I also think that we're forgetting something. Don't forget, in a couple of weeks here, remember that guy, Johnny Bones Jones? Remember him? Pound for pound. I think we're forgetting a couple of things here. Don't forget when he comes back. We're going to have another conversation. But this is one of the largest fights in terms of magnitude we've seen in a long time. So I'm good. I'm excited. I'm happy. And I want to kind of jump straight into this. But before we do any of that, let's knock out a little bit of housekeeping, shall we? Right, folks? If you haven't, you know what you need to do. You need to subscribe to the show right now. And I've been thinking a lot, AJ, about our why, right? We know what we do. I mean, we bring out the picks, right? We break down fights, we give prop bets, all that fun stuff, right? We know the how, right? And we know that we are your favorite fighter's favorite fight show, but the why, right? That's super important. So if we can, let's just take a step back and reflect on why exactly we do this. Folks, I want to give a very quick origin story, and I know that this might feel a little long-winded, but AJ, you remember, we would sit in working in a bar, right? Watching fights, talking nonstop when we should have been doing our jobs, right? And we said, you know what? Let's put this thing on camera. Let's make it happen. We do this, right? Because we're passionate. It don't cost $1. We don't need $1. We don't need none of that stuff, right? But when you get a fight of this magnitude, is your why not rewarded? Do you feel rewarded when you get a fight of this magnitude? This is MMA at its highest pinnacle. What do you think?
Derick, I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the biggest things I think why I like to do this and why I think we like to do this is because if you're good at doing something, you don't do it for free. And if you're going to do it for free, at least give it to the most people you can. And that's you fine folks right there looking at us, watching us right now, man. This is the way to go. And honestly, we'd be doing it regardless. I'd be in a different bar, in a different atmosphere, chopping it up, telling my homies exactly how to win some money on the weekends because there's fights that are going to be happening. And who else would you want to be there besides breaking it down with us too? I don't know, Derick. This is exactly why I like to do it, man.
And folks, that is your why. You should subscribe to the show right now. We have a lofty goal, 1,000 subscribers. Let's get it. You know where to find us, bloodywaterpodcast.com. Tell your homies, tell your friends. And without any further ado, brother, we got to jump straight into these picks. Let's get it. All right, folks, this is your moment. Take a screenshot. Take a look at what we got here on the screen. For those who are simply listening, we're going to break down the picks in 1 second. This is your cue, though. If you are a visual listener, watcher, whatever you want to call it, take a screenshot, take these picks to the bank, and let's get it. But AJ, we got more important stuff to talk about. We're going to jump straight into this main card. However, before we do that, let's do a very, very brief TLDR of last week. Even though we didn't do a show, we still gave down our picks. I'm just going to put it like this: 1 and 3 a pop, tie on the night. It was not good. You did get the most important pick correct, though. Sergey Spivak bodied Derrick Lewis. It was nasty, and I want you in 1 to 2 sentences to give me your impression of what took place last weekend.
Man, I think it was nonetheless weird things happening in the world, power outs over here in Austin and everything like that. But I think even in the UFC, there was weird things happening, especially for Derrick Lewis. He came in, he underperformed. It was a late night card. I don't think anything of these things were taken into consideration because I know I was struggling to stay awake. And I'm sure there was a lot of people as well hurting there to watch the fight, and the energy was low. Who knows exactly what it was, but I felt like it was an underperformance from Derrick Lewis and the exact right time for Sergey Spivak Spivak to come up and do exactly what he did. Kind of all over the card for the night. Like Derick said, 1-3, that is what it is. But like I said, it was a weird off occasion, folks. You can still see though on the bottom when Derick had it up in just a second ago. 8-7, 8-6, 7-7, something like that. Man, we are still very, very close on all those picks, even with that weird comeuppance. But how'd you take last week, Derick?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it as simple as possible, man. Sergey Spivak did what everybody thought he was going to do, and sometimes we fall victim to it as well, man. Narratives will get you to change your mind. Emotions will cloud your judgment, and that's what happened with me. Because originally, the first time they were booked, I picked Lewis. I picked Spivak. I switched it to Lewis for this one, see what the Black Beast can do. New generation of heavyweights upon us right here. And I will say, for clarity's sake, folks, 1-3 a pop for me and AJ both, because the Korean Superboy, Do Ho Choi, his fight went to a draw, right, against Kyle Nelson. So with that being said, let's jump into the thing that everybody has been waiting for, myself included. I want to talk about these fights, brother. Let's get it.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
It's like, AJ, man, how often do you get to see something like this? You got the champion versus the featherweight champion, and not only do you have pound for pound implications here, what's more important is this. Remember Alexander Volkanovski? I'm just going to say this, man. When he beat Max Holloway, that was a big deal the first time. And controversy aside, he did it again, and he beat him again. And then controversy aside, they fought again. And then what? He did it again, right? The point that I'm making here is that you have a dude who has transcended Max Holloway in terms of rankings in the featherweight all-time history. He's probably the only guy underneath Jose Aldo in terms of supremacy. Now we're talking about the lightweights, and we're talking about an Islam Makhachev. Hasn't defended yet, right? But ultimately, if he can defeat Alexander Volkanovski here and do it in impressive fashion, I think it is truly safe to say Islam Makhachev has done something at this point that even Khabib Nurmagomedov was not able to accomplish in his career. Would you mind extrapolating on that a little bit?
Yeah, I already like that you're bringing into the fact of the Khabib comparison. I mean, it's there, it's easy, it's a layup. Everybody's been talking about it, and the kind of thing that I've been noticing on is Islam isn't exactly like Khabib. There's a little bit difference of him, man. He's and nonetheless in his performance and his style, but also in the way he's kind of has a chip on his shoulder, man. He does have that loss. You could hear him in the Embedded in the UFC, the pre-fight presser when they're doing face-to-face. He's already calling him short. He's digging a little, man. He has a little bit of that dog in him, but everybody's pressuring him to always be like, hey, be like Khabib, stick to the game plan, do his father did, all this stuff that these Russian fighters continuously say to stay on top. So will he stray away? And the only time Islam has lost is when he did take that chance, when he did stray away from the game plan and gets caught with the right hand. Beautiful timing. You know, it is what it is. It happens. And to see Alexander Volkanovski come in and do this thing, I think going back to what you were talking about first, Derick, and I'm a little all over the place with this one, but it's the narrative of it. Yeah. I'm excited for the narrative that's being built of that pound for pound and the champ and all that, but as well as the narrative of both of these dudes kind of being a little undervalued. Overlooked, if you will, because of when Alexander Volkanovski did beat Max Holloway, the 1, the 2, and the 3 times, whether they're controversial or not, he eventually did kind of fill that role. Yep. Islam still has yet to do it, and I feel like both of these guys are still kind of undervalued. Maybe why a lot of the people in the press don't really feel like this fight card has been announced. I mean, or it has been promoted as well. I know this one, when I looked at this card, nothing jumps out because there's so many studs on this one. It's almost hard to promote it. I know I was all over the place with that one. Derick, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you feel it? Do you have any pushback?
I feel what you're saying. I think ultimately, if there's somebody who's being overlooked here, it's Alexander Volkanovski. Islam Makhachev is not being overlooked whatsoever. He's a clear betting favorite. Look at the betting line. Minus 380, plus 300 comeback for Volkanovski. And those were opening odds, right? I think, though, what we're saying here is look at Islam Makhachev, man. How is he going to become the pound-for-pound greatest fighter by beating a champion in a lower weight division? You shouldn't be, almost. It's only for the stakes that Alexander Volkanovski has on this. You got to think about what he's accomplished, and that's when it all kind of makes sense a little bit. We need to see more title defenses from Makhachev, but to just do something against a fighter of this caliber, a man like Volkanovski who's on, like a 21-fight win streak or something like that. He's beaten the legends. He's done all that. That's where it makes it impressive. But let's talk about the real elephant in the room right here, AJ, because this is the big one. Islam Makhachev takes a different approach than Khabib does, and you hate to have to compare him all the time, but he also made a great point, and he says, oh yeah, I understand why Volkanovski wants this fight. What does he have to lose? And this almost reminds me of, remember that scenario when Max Holloway pre-Alexander Volkanovski, was like, yeah, I'll go up and fight Dustin Poirier for the belt. And even though he was a world beater, beating the brakes off everybody, you go up that weight class and things turn out a little bit different. So this is the point that I want to put in. If these two fighters were the same weights, right? If they were the same exact weight, same height, same reach, same everything, and you had to give an advantage to somebody, I think we can arguably say, at least I can, because maybe I'm just too big of a fan, Volkanovski should not be an underdog in this fight. But this is what I'm going to point out to you. And then I want your pushback on here. Islam Makhachev, very good, just like Alexander Volkanovski. Different styles, right? Not as well of a striker as Volkanovski is, but his grappling is phenomenal. If there's something that can change an X factor between two equal opponents, it's size. And Islam Makhachev isn't simply just a taller fighter. Yeah, Volk short. He's the bigger fighter. He's going to be the stronger fighter. And I think sometimes that's all you need to sway the fight. So with all of that, let's compact this, man. You know what I mean? Let's really break it down. What do you think?
So I'm glad you're bringing the size into it, because if we remember, or if revisionist history takes a little bit of look back, every champ that has gone up to fight, for the most part, blanket statement, Israel Adesanya kind of struggled with this one as well. But you take the Henry Cejudos, the people that are fighting these bigger guys, usually in that 10-pound weight difference, the 35s to 45s or the 45s to 55s, not that big of a jump. Most of the time, we've seen how much weight these guys cut. It's 20 to 30 pounds. So usually they're around the same weight. And then you bring Volkanovski into the mix, where this dude used to be a 290-pound rugby player.
Not that heavy, brother.
Whatever the weight is.
Sure.
Maybe I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But however he was a big dude for that 5 whatever stature he is. So the point being that he's felt that kind of weight. He knows that kind of pressure. Now does he know the Islam Makhachev pressure? We're gonna test that out. And I think that's the big one right here. Yeah, Islam is the more powerful guy. He is going to be the bigger, more dominating guy. Until he's on his back, then we get to see. Now, is Volkanovski the guy that's going to be able to put him there, man? That's what I'm excited to be. I've stayed up and down on this entire topic, man. I've gone back and forth on who's going to win, because if there's ever a guy to put it to somebody else who's not going to be bullied, who's going to be a dog in the fight no matter what, it's the guy who almost got choked out by Brian Ortega, who, you tell me, Derek, how much air was in the arena when Alexander Volkanovski slipped out of those. And I think he's going to maybe pull out some magic again. We'll see. What do you think?
Well, I could tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I was there for that fight, man. And in that moment, everybody was jumping up, screaming. Brian Ortega just pulled off the biggest upset. And then Volkanovski slipped his head out. And then he just started beating the brakes off of Ortega. And it was nasty. And that is the big point, right? If you can survive that, what makes you think that Islam is just going to run through this guy, right? But I'll tell you, this is, I think, where we need to start breaking in the actual X's and O's, right? The big test is, can Volkanovski surpass rounds 1 and rounds 2? If you can get past the halfway mark of round 3, Volkanovski has a legitimate shot to win that fight. Legitimate shot. If he can get past the halfway point of round 3. The question is, can he get there, right? And I think that is the big looming question that nobody can answer until we actually see it happen. At the end of the day, man, what does this... So think about it for Volkanovski. He has almost everything to gain here, nothing to lose. Islam Makhachev is the one taking the risk. When you are the risk taker, oftentimes, even though he's over here saying, yeah, I really want to knock him out and all that, don't you think in your heart of hearts, when you're taking the risk, you play the most conservative? When you're conservative and you're Makhachev, you stick to your bread and butter, just like when Khabib would give him the game plan and says, why are you out here striking? Grapple. The game plan. Grapple. That's all you need to do. So if he can... Craig Jones said it phenomenally. He says, Islam Makhachev is not some great submission artist. He knows how to hold people down really well, and he submits them. But his submissions are not spectacular. And I think that's very true. Bread and butter, fundamentals, brother. That's what wins the fight here. What is Alexander Volkanovski, other than being tough and being relentless and being Volkanovski, what does he have to do to win?
Man, it's rough because I don't see Volkanovski outstriking Makhachev right here. I also don't really see him outpowering and putting him on his back, but I think he is going to have to hit some crazy sweeps, do something in the later rounds. He's going to have to rely on his toughness. If not now, then whenever is he going to do it? And this is the time. I don't know, Derek. There's really no X's and O's because, well, I get there's a bunch of X's and O's, but the matter of it is going to have to be seen when the fight goes down, because I don't see the striking being that phenomenal from one side or the other. I think they're both kind of the same kind of matchup. Sure, Islam is a little bit better at wrestling, but everything's kind of null and void, man. I think we're going to see a lot of back and forth, which makes me, for this fight personally, I'm excited just to watch it and not really put too much money on it, man. I don't know which one's going to be, because if there's ever somebody who's going to stop a Russian powerhouse, it's going to be Volkanovski. It's going to be the Terror, the dude from down under, little Tasmanian devil. But if there's a dude who's just going to steamroll somebody who's been steamrolling the young boys down below him, it's going to be the Russian that's rolling through his entire division. I mean, so it's hard to say, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it'd be too easy to sit here for me, right? I'll let you get away with it. It's going to be too easy for me to say, yeah, stay away. Don't bet on this. No. If you're going to bet on somebody here, the bet is to make on Islam Makhachev, and it's as simple as that, right? At the end of the day, I've given this a lot of thought. I could be right. I could be wrong. But if there's one thing that I know is tried and true, it's that size matters. And look at Max Holloway, Israel Adesanya. Look at all of these dudes who decide to go up, aside from a Dan Henderson, right? Look at all these dudes who decide to go up. And that is the big X factor right there. Islam Makhachev can simply be too much just in terms of size. Because if you look at him, bro, it's not like he's just 4 inches taller. They got like the same reach, right? But when someone puts that squeeze on you and holds you down, and when you're used to being able to escape in certain positions and you can't anymore, mentally things get a little bit tough. But I think if there's anyone who can surpass that mental barrier, it's Alexander Volkanovski, which is why it's a big guessing game. But the safe pick is Islam Makhachev. If you got nuts, you in Australia, brother. You got nuts, you bet on Alexander the Great, and I will give you the biggest kudos if he wins. But I'll tell you straight up right here, I like an Islam Makhachev, but I'm going to give Alexander Volkanovski some credit here. I think that he gets it done. I think Islam Makhachev gets it done via decision. I know submission is the easy bet. That's what everybody is sitting here saying. Yeah, he's just going to grab him. He's going to submit him. It'll be too much. I think a decision victory is probably the most likely if we're respecting the pedigree of an Alexander Volkanovski. Do you see it the same way, or do you think Makhachev gets him out of there?
No, I'm right with you, Derek. I'm taking the safe bet. I'm going Makhachev, and I'm also going decision because of how dangerous Alexander Volkanovski can be, how much of a dog this dude is. He's going to be in the fight the whole time. It's going to be crazy to see Islam put him away in anything less than 4. So if that happens, man, blown away. And if you're, like you said, Derek, if you got the nuts and you're betting it on Volkanovski right here, make sure you're dropping a comment when this one goes live. Put the timestamp. Let us know, because you will get a lot of credit if you do.
Exactly. I say video proof, receipts, everything, bring it out. You know what I'm saying?
Hit us on Twitter, man. We want to see it.
But hey, I want to make it very clear before we move on. I am not in the camp that says, oh, Makhachev is just going to smash this guy. I am not in that camp. I give Volkanovski more than a puncher's chance, more than a fighting chance. This dude has a real opportunity to win this fair and square. But I just think that it's not a height. It's not a reach. It's simply size. You see a massive dude like Makhachev, come on, baby. Yeah, Volkanovski, rugby, but it ain't the same, brother. Let's get it. All right, man, that's going to be a fantastic bout. But let's talk about this co-main event that I think is majorly slept on, because the implications of this main event that we're talking about, I mean, this kind of plays hand in hand with this co-main event, right? So in the co-main event, you finally get 2 dudes who says, oh yeah, our champion of our division, he's going to go fight up at 155. Yeah, well, we're not going to keep the division on hold. Let's see. There's only going to be one real champion, but we're going to be the next guy to fight him. If Volkanovski wins the belt, let's talk about that first. If he wins the lightweight championship and now he's double champ, he's McGregor, he's DC, right? How meaningful is this fight right here? Because at the end of the day, you'd have to imagine, unless Volkanovski is worksman like hard hat on, he's not going to go, oh yeah, let me just go defend my featherweight belt now. He'll probably try to be like, okay, I'll stick around in lightweight for a bit. So like, how meaningful is this if Volkanovski wins?
I mean, it only depends on how true Volkanovski stays to his word, because he's already said that he's going to make this a #1 contenders fight and come back for the strap. Instantly, Dana's already, I don't know if it's been confirmed or if it's just an Uncle Cheo leak, but once the door closes on that fight, there is no longer a featherweight champion. So it's an interim versus a previous. So we'll see, man. It could make for a hungrier Volkanovski, but I'm excited because I truly think this one is a #1 contenders match. Neither of these guys have been calling for the championship, but they have been calling for the dudes that are on their way to the championship. And it is a final meeting of contenders, man. And this is a classic striker versus a wrestler or a striker who has a lot of ground game, a lot of skill, and is very, very well rounded, versus a wrestler who also has very good striking and is also really, really well rounded, very powerful. This is going to be a crazy fight, man. And when you said underhyped, Derek, that cannot be understated anymore, man, because I feel like the rest of this card everybody's been talking about the championship, but we're forgetting about the interim championship right here, and there's a lot of other bangers coming up.
Well, my favorite part, like I said, is that they're not holding up the division, right? And I'm a little surprised. I didn't know that the door would be closed on that featherweight championship if Volk is. Are you saying it's not win or lose? If he loses, he's keeping his belt. You know what I mean?
Yes, but it's like I said, Uncle Chael. This is all Uncle Chael, so who knows exactly how true it is? I'm sure the greatest in West Lynn, but. What he was saying is that once the door does close, this is a number one contenders match. So if Volkanovski is going to come back, then he has that fight. If he isn't, then that person is the champion.
Well, listen, I'll just say this, man. You have a phenomenal blood and guts fighter in Yair Rodriguez versus another blood and guts fighter in Josh Emmett. But this is really the right hand versus a diverse, wide range of striking attacks right here. Now, the one thing that I think is a big separating factor between Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez, even though they're both very durable, Josh Emmett is the definition of durable. Yeah, you get sent to the Shadow Realm against Jeremy Stevens, right? But at the end of the day, man, I do think that this is going to be... This is going to be heavy hitting, man. A lot of trading in the middle of the octagon. And I think this is going to come down to either somebody is getting finished, right? Or it's going to be a big points battle, man. And we're going to have a similar discussion that we did against the Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett fight, right? Or the Yair Rodriguez versus, why am I blanking? Who did Yair just fight?
Oh, his last fight.
I know exactly who he just fought. Why am I blanking on this? Brian Ortega. There we go. Or not Brian Ortega, Max Holloway, where he lost that fight. I think that this is going to be similar to that one, right? Where it's just, we're really going to be sitting here and having that conversation about like striking wise, tit for tat, what's more meaningful? How are you scoring this fight? But I will mention, I mean, you said it, Yair Rodriguez has a ground game that is a little bit different than Josh Emmett's. However, is Josh Emmett going to allow the fight to get there? And that's really going to be the question. This dude is phenomenal at just kind of keeping that range, doing whatever he can to load up on that big right hand or use that left hook. Yair, though, if we know one thing about him that makes him so effective, but at the same time so ineffective, is his willingness to engage in a blood and guts, I don't care, I'm throwing down and scrapping. And what worries me about this fight here, AJ, is that if he goes that route and he exerts a lot of that energy like he did against Max Holloway in rounds 1, 2, just standing his ground, just making sure every shot is getting answered, well, what happens come round 4, round 5? You know what I mean? Josh Emmett isn't that fighter where everything needs to have a rebuttal, right? So does that worry you at all, or do you see it differently?
Well, 100% it worries me because Josh Emmett is an absolute powerhouse, and it feels like this is the time when Emmett is really coming into his fold, man. It feels like Emmett has grown to become the fighter, and almost in a hushed tone. Nobody's been talking about Emmett. Everybody kind of forgot about Emmett over the last 2 years, and this dude is coming in for the kill. Mm-hmm. What makes me excited for this fight, Derek, is the kicks of Yair Rodriguez. Yep. Like you said, Josh Emmett's going to be there. He's going to be the one setting up that big right hand coming over the top, until you get kicked with the left, right in the ribs, and then another to the head, and then your legs getting kicked out. And next thing you know, there's a spinning axe kick to your face, jumping knee, all these things flying at you that is making you want to stop loading up on your punches and maybe take a backward step. That's my question, Derek. In this, whether it's a dog fight or whether it's a technical one, who do you think is going to be the one taking the backward step? Are we going to see Emmett on the front foot right here, or are we going to see Yair kind of taking advantage, making this a more bouncy fight, if you will?
If history serves us correct, I think Josh Emmett starts out on the front foot, but Yair is going to stand his ground, and then it's going to become a counter-striking battle after that. I will say this, man. Josh Emmett has definitely been the guy who... he's winning fights, even though it doesn't really, like, numbers-wise on paper, it doesn't look like he's winning his fights. His last 3 fights, he won, even though he was outpointed in significant strikes. All 3 fights, right? So against Calvin Kattar, he got outstruck by like 25-plus strikes. Against Dan Ige, he got outstruck by 10 strikes. Shane Burgos, he got only outstruck by 1 strike here, but this is the point. He won all 3 fights while having less significant strikes in total. So clearly his is a power thing, right? Yair Rodriguez, man, not only volume, but like you said, with those kicks, he's bringing the power. So let's talk about it. If this fight hits the floor, who is on top control? Who's in the bottom?
Josh Emmett on top control. Well, Yair is throwing up some slick shit, Derek. Mm-hmm. Yair is not to be trifled with on the ground, but as always, until you're getting punched in the face, which Josh Emmett does have a tendency to really have heat-seeking missiles for your chin.
I like that. Heat-seeking missiles, absolutely. Let's take a look at these odds. Minus 165 for Yair Rodriguez to open up, plus 140 for Josh Emmett, which I'm a little surprised, honestly, because I thought given 5 wins in a row for Josh Emmett, they would have given him a little more respect here. But the props is really where it gets interesting. Plus 275 for a TKO for Yair, plus 155 for a decision, plus 1,600 for a submission. It's a little interesting to me. You know what I mean? That they really gave him the long shot. Like they're viewing him like he's just a pure striker here. However, that plus 300 for Josh Emmett, we have to talk about it. We'd be doing a disservice if we didn't. I mean, do you see some value there? Is that juicy or no?
Especially for a wild and exciting counter striker that Yair possesses. And if we saw anything from the Calvin Kattar fight that Josh Emmett had, Josh is calculated. This boy is reading things. He's seeing movements. He's setting up traps. He's feinting when he's supposed to, and he's reading things like he should be, man. This dude is a talented striker. It's very lucrative plus 300 right there. I kind of want to touch on that submission as well, man. If you got a little bit of scratch, Josh Emmett from the top, when he's throwing arms down, Yair is slick on the ground. So plus 1,600, you know. You got $5. Why not?
Why not? Why not? I will say this, man. Josh Emmett, when I saw him take a flush spinning elbow to the face against Calvin Kattar and walk through it, I was like, oh, okay, this changes things, right? Yair is going to have to give him everything he's got, man. Yair will have to give him everything that he has to win this fight. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, man. The explosion, the athleticism of Yair Rodriguez, I think for a championship fight over 5 rounds, if he can hold up his cardio in rounds 4 and 5, I'm taking Yair Rodriguez here, man. And if we're being completely honest about it, man, the last loss that Josh Emmett has, it is a knockout loss to Jeremy Stephens. Okay, but if you look before that, man, he's got one other loss in the UFC. It was a split decision. This is a very, very durable guy, and I know this is boring, and I know that this is not exciting, and a lot of people are probably going to be feeling a little bit of type of way about it. But at the end of the day, man, I think Yair gets it done via decision. I think that it's going to be a hard-fought scrap for that interim championship, and I want you to give me your pick, right, and the method, but then I'm going to talk to you about the over and under. So talk to me. How are you seeing it?
I see it the same way, Derek, especially because of the previous fights that Emmett has had. Yeah, sure, I said he's growing into his time. It feels like he's really coming into the fold right here. But if we've seen anything in his last fights that you already highlighted too, the performance isn't there. But what beats a solid textbook performance when you're getting out significantly struck is when you have that kind of power. But what beats that is an explosive, stylish, somebody who's making the crowd go, ooh, even when he's not doing anything or connecting. And that's Yair Rodriguez, and that's why I think he's going to win this decision fight right here. But me personally, man, I think because of the dog that Emmett is, we're going to see a late round knockout. I'm taking a round 4 TKO Yair Rodriguez.
Okay. And I mean, shoot, man, it'd be the first time in a while that Emmett falls susceptible. But yeah, I mean, listen, man, you take a shin to the jaw in the wrong time. Yeah, you're not recovering from that one very well. I'll just say that. But this is what I wanted to talk to you about, man. Over and under on this fight. If you had to guess what the over and under was, what are you giving it?
3.5.
You would think, right? 2.5 rounds, man. The odds makers think that this is going to go to a finish. Now, if we're going over and under 2.5 rounds, what do you think the favorite is?
Over.
Yeah. Minus 280 for the over, plus 220 for the under 2.5 rounds. So the odds makers are a little more in line with what you're saying here. Probably a finish in the later rounds, but not a decision. I just think both of these guys are too tough, man. They're too tough for their own goods, man. So trading back and forth, I see this being a war. This could be very Korean Zombie-esque, you know what I mean? Where we see something go down at the last second. Either way, that is your co-main event for the interim featherweight championship. And then pending the result of the main event, we'll see, man. We'll see how heavy the implications are for this fight. Now, AJ, man, we go straight from a couple championship bouts to 2 fighters who we can arguably see fighting for gold here in the future. And I'm talking about Jack Della Maddalena versus Rude Boy Randy Brown in a strange turn of events here. Jack Della Maddalena, even though this dude's on a 4-fight knockout streak, he gets the A side, man. Randy Brown, all of a sudden, this dude is just like, oh yeah, we're just feeding him to Maddalena. Don't like that, first off. I think Randy Brown at a plus 250 underdog here is massively undervalued. I think that he can absolutely win this fight. This could be somewhat of a trap game for Jack Della Maddalena, who at this point everybody thinks that as long as he touches you, you're going to bed, which could totally be the case, bro. Especially look at where he's fighting. Look at all of this, man. Everything is lining up for the narrative. But I got to ask, before we even talk about the star that Jack Della Maddalena is, has everyone forgot about Randy Brown? What's going on here?
Bro, this is crazy, Derek, because the narrative is so real on this one that I feel like it's so in front of our face. Nobody's talking about it, man.
Yeah.
Nobody has even talked about this hype. Embedded isn't even covering it that much. They showed Randy Brown just shooting basketballs. That's how much they have little respect for him. And it's a damn shame, bro, because this is a dog. And this is going to be a very fun fight. This is the real deal test for Jack Della Maddalena. And sure, could the knockout happen? Yeah. I don't think so, though, dog. This is going to be a one hell of a scrap that not a lot of people are talking about. Mark your cards, folks. This one might be fight of the night, man. This is going to be a banger. And if you're counting out Rude Boy Randy Brown, putting him on the B side, like you said, plus 250, bro, you don't know what you're talking about. This dude is a dog and has been a certified dog for quite a while, man.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like this dude's new to the scene, man. It's like Randy Brown has been working his way up the trenches slowly but surely, but I will say Jack Della Maddalena has one massive advantage on hand here, and it's that, let's look at Randy Brown in his last fight. It was against Francisco Trinaldo, and the success that you saw Trinaldo have against the much longer, rangier fighter in Randy Brown is that he was able to walk him down and put his back to the cage multiple times. And if Jack Della Maddalena can do that, we're going to have some real problems on our hands if you're a Randy Brown. Simply because, yeah, you could back him up with those long strikes, throw punches and bunches, but Maddalena, for whatever reason, when he hits you, he's just like not the ultimate, but he's a very high level downhill fighter. Once the strikes start landing, it's almost like, look what he did to Danny Roberts, man. He just walked up on him, cracked him with the big to the top, came down to the bottom, and Roberts almost had a delayed, like, oh. He just kind of like started crumpling. And then Maddalena put it on him and walked off. TKO, easy money. Now, Randy Brown might do something that Danny Roberts tried to do against Jack Della Maddalena, and that's grapple a little bit, man. Those long limbs right there, you start locking up some front chokes. You start trying to take this fight to the ground a little bit. Could see a little bit of success there. But then again, Randy Brown's not the guy who's going to just aim to take you down. It's going to be a lot of, I think, counter grappling, if that makes sense. Staying long might not be enough for the onslaught of Jack Della Maddalena in terms of like Randy Brown's approach. But like, what traps can Jack Della Maddalena find himself in just trying to walk him down the whole time and just play boxer?
I think it's going to be that when Jack Della Maddalena is walking Randy Brown down, Randy Brown's going to have to get him in one of the chokes or get in a scramble, get him in a, I can't think of the name right now, plum, lock up the Muay Thai plum, something to get him locked up. Use those long limbs that are going to be able to control Maddalena, control that pressure and that power. If Randy Brown's going to be in there getting body shotted up and really controlled around, that's going to be his roughest time in that cage. But if he's able to disrupt the balance, hit the body, make Della Maddalena start thinking about other things, throw some knees up in there, and really control the neck and the head and the pressure of Maddalena, then we're going to see something interesting. Because I think keeping Jack at range with your long limbs sounds really good, but Maddalena is a downhill fighter, like you said, Derek, and has the power to really do some damage. But when he's coming in, when he's attacking, when he's rushing in, that's your time to swoop up those double underhooks, start with some kind of a scramble. I don't think the takedown is going to be there for Randy Brown, but I do think the scramble will be there in which he can really work for a more dominant position. That's where we're going to see Randy Brown try. What do you think?
I think it's going to be easier said than done just because of the Jack. I'm not going to sit here and lie, man. I'm over here coming in like Randy Brown's being discounted, but Jack Della Maddalena is legit. He's already proved it, but this is going to be a very tough test. Randy Brown's fought guys similar to Della Maddalena, right? He fought Jared Gooden and he fought Chaos Williams in 2 of his last 5, right? And I'm not saying that Gooden is going to be on the same level, not nearly at all, but Chaos Williams is a very technical, very heavy hitter, man, and he was able to get that split decision against him. His last loss, though, was about 5 fights ago against Vicente Luque. He got knocked out here, man. So it goes to show, like, you hit the button on anybody, they will go out. But having Cowboy Oliveira, Jared Gooden, or not Jared Gooden, you know what Gooden I'm talking about, Night Train Gooden, Chaos Williams, and Francisco Trinaldo, having wins over those guys in your last 4 fights, I think that's pretty solid in comparison to Jack Della Maddalena's competition. So the question here is, for Randy Brown, if he were to win, like what would his methodology be? Odds makers say TKO, ooh, yeah, right, plus 1,200. Submission, yeah, all right, plus 800. Plus 450 with the decision is even still rough. Like across the board, they're almost giving him no shot. So if you were going on the Randy Brown side of things, how does he get it done?
I think control and domination, really making Della Maddalena feel weak, the littler guy in there, kind of bullied around and drown him in the deep waters. Show him why you've been in the UFC as long as you have and what kind of dog you are, man. Because that really, if you're going to engage in a striking match with Maddalena, you're playing with fire. If you can get him to the ground and work some stuff, I see it happening. But I mean, plus 1,200. Come on, we're not really talking right there. Like you said earlier, you got $5, might as well. But seems to be the decision, the drowning in the deep waters, making things bloody, making Jack feel what the UFC is about right here. And if you've ever played a varsity sport or a big-time sport, you went and played college sport, they always talking about that next level. Show Maddalena that next level of what the UFC actually is, and then we're talking about a dogfight. That's when it gets interesting for Randy Brown.
That's right, man. And I'm just looking at the resumes, man. Jack Della Maddalena has made his UFC kind of career thus far off of Danny Roberts, Ramazan Emeev, Pete Rodriguez, and Angelusa, right? So Lusa and Pete Rodriguez, real power threats on the hands. But like I said, it's just not the same caliber of the guys that Brown has fought. Emeev, good grappler, right? And he was able to stave him off. But then again, a lot of people criticize Emeev a little bit, in terms of his grappling style. I'll just say this, man. Jack Della Maddalena minus 135 TKO against Randy Brown to me is absolutely absurd. If it does happen, I will eat my words happily, but I don't see this coming to fruition against Randy Brown unless Randy Brown just has one of those nights where he just decides he's not trying to, mix it up at all. I think Randy Brown is a talented enough fighter to be able to stave off simply just getting walked down and boxed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, give the man a little respect. I'm going to go Jack Della Maddalena, and once again, I get it, not fun. I'm going decision here, Maddalena against Randy Brown. I just think you come to a certain point where they can at least, if they don't win, they can at least avoid a tragic knockout loss. Like Randy Brown, with his size and his frame, I think he can do it. So give me the decision for Jack Della Maddalena. I like that plus 300. Don't feel fantastic about it. I do think Randy Brown could absolutely win this fight, and if he does, we all need to put some respect on my man's name. But how do you see it, AJ?
I agree, Derek, and basically everything you've said. If there's somebody who can win this fight, Randy Brown is that next level fighter who can get things done. Is it going to be a finish? I don't think so. We're going to see a drowning here either way. I'm going Jack Della Maddalena. I'm with you. I'm taking the decision. I just think Randy Brown is too good to get finished. We'll see what exactly happens, man. You got $5, throw it on that submission. If you got 10, might as well throw it on Randy Brown. But I'm taking the safe money with Jack Della Maddalena.
And I will say over and under on this fight is 1.5 rounds, but it is favorite to go over. We're looking at minus 185 for the favorite, plus 155 or minus 185 for the over, plus 155 for the under. So it should be a fun one right there. And then for these last two bouts, AJ, I mean, we could speed through them pretty quickly because at the end of the day, these are pretty straightforward. We got heavyweights. And it's funny because I've been hearing this saying, man. They're like, on every card, you have to have a sloppy heavyweight fight, right? If you're looking at last week, you had Marcin Tybura versus Blagoy Ivanov. Sloppy heavyweights, decision. This one has all the makings for a sloppy heavyweight fight besides the fact that these two men are not sloppy. They're heavyweights, but these boys ain't sloppy. They're crisp, they're sharp, and if they stand in the pocket and trade, this is going to be a very, very fun fight. Now, what's interesting to me here, man, is that I do see a likelihood that this could go to a decision, right? Heavyweights decision, that's never fun. You never want to see that. But these are two very agile fighters who both pack a lot of punch or a lot of pop in their punch. But at the end of the day, look at the success of a Justin Tafa versus a Parker Porter, and it's a little different. I guess you can say that. So I want to ask you off the bat, man, why do you think that Justin Tafa, who has won 2 of his last 5 fights, right? He's 2-3 in his last 5. How does he open up as a betting favorite against Parker Porter, who has won 3 of his last 5, but his last loss, it's hard to count against him, man. You lost to Jailton Almeida, a dude who is a ragdolling ranked heavyweights right now like it's nobody's business. What do you make of that?
I think it's all on the visuals of what the bad taste in our mouth Parker Porter has left. And I say our mouth as the supposed our, because not really mine, man. I think Parker Porter is, like you said, Derek, crisp, powerful. This dude is one of the new breeds of fighters who is not sloppy at all, who is going to be there in a dogfight and is so durable. I think this one's also going the distance, Derek, because this dude can take a shot. We've seen in the Sherman fights, the Parisian fights, this dude can scrap, all right. But with that Jailton Almeida loss and how things went and just the views of what Parker Porter does, because we've seen him in boring fights before. I think that the media around him is not looking so favorable. Whereas you go over to Justin Tafa, this dude looks like a scrapper. He's going to be in his hometown. I mean, his nickname's the Bad Man for for Christ's sakes, man. This dude is a dog. That being said, is he as proven as a Parker Porter? No. But he does have the style and the flair that makes you excited. I mean, you just look at his last head kick. Yes, sure, it was against Harry Hunsucker, which is no longer in the UFC anymore. But this dude can fight. And yeah, he's dropped a couple to Carlos Felipe and then Vendera, but he's still in there for the fight. And I think that's why the media around him is making him the favorite. He's more fan-friendly, if you will, to put it in a shorter term. He's just more quote unquote exciting. Do you agree with that? You have pushback. I have a little pushback in own that's why I quoted it. What do you think?
I think that I'm going to be completely transparent here. Big fan of Justin Tafa, man. I really do love his style. He came in. I mean, look, he's 5-3 overall, right? Like overall, you don't have a lot of fights under your belt, right? But we will say this. This is in Perth. He's Australian. Obviously, betting favorite. Come on, what are we talking about? Parker Porter, bro. I think that this dude just has way more ways to win this fight. If he needs to grapple, I think he could take it that route too. Justin Tafa, in his UFC tenure here, man, and I'm not trying, there's no disrespect whatsoever. One of his 5 opponents that he's fought in the UFC is still employed with the UFC, and he lost that fight. The only 2 wins you have, Harry Hunsucker and Juan Adams, they're no longer in the UFC. You knocked them both out. You lost to Jared Vandera, Carlos Felipe, and Jorgen De Castro, right? Jared Vandera is the only one who's left in the UFC. Parker Porter, on the other hand, we're looking at Jelton Almeida, Alain Boudreaux, Chase Sherman, Josh Parisian, Chris Dawkins. I'm not sitting here saying his resume is like uber impressive, but I am saying if you look at the guys that he's beat, he's not fought the big, sloppy, hard-hitting heavyweight. He's fought the new breed, the hybrid heavyweights, man, and to have success against those guys goes to show you're a little bit different here. My analysis is going to be short and sweet. I think Parker Porter is going to have a little too much finesse. He's going to outpoint Justin Tafa, hit him with some good shit, grab a pocket full of cash and bounce. You know what I'm saying? Like, realistically, that's how I see it. How do you see this playing out? Because I got Parker Porter. Give me the decision win. Not fun. Once again, not fun. But if you look at his last 3 victories in the UFC, guess what? All heavyweights, all decisions. I'm just going to put it out there. What do you got?
Folks, I'll put it with the preface. Derek, I'm glad you're taking the boring, not fun route because I'm going the fun route on this one. I think we're going to see an exciting start from Justin Tafa. We're going to see shots coming down the middle, big heavyweight hands coming down the pipe, kicks. We're going to see a brawl right off the jump. And if Parker Porter can survive, I will say that I do think we're going to be hearing Justin Tafa asking, "Hey, dog, let's stand up again. Like, come on, let's get the business. What's up? Stand up, because Parker Porter has a lot of ways in which he can win this fight. I think we're going to see an early knockout, though. I'm going Justin Tafa. I think the big hands are going to start flying early, down under, and I'm taking that plus 650 TKO. Round 1 knockout.
Sheesh, man. I just find it hard to see against a Parker Porter. I mean, you look at the last guy that's beat Parker Porter by knockout, and that was your boy, Chris Dawkins, right? But then again, if you do look at it in its entirety, he has lost by knockout quite a few times here for Parker Porter. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It would make me feel good to see Justin Tafa win, especially via knockout in Australia. That would make me feel good because I'm a big fan of him, and he did arguably get robbed in his fight. I think it was against Jared Vandera. I think that one was very controversial. But either way, yeah, give me the boring decision. I like Parker Porter, though, here, man. I think he doesn't get nearly the amount of respect that he should. And we've talked about it time and time again. If you look at him and you look at his frame and you discount him for that reason, you're making a pretty hefty mistake. All right, man. Now, this is going to be a fun one here, AJ, and this is going to be a fun one simply because we have a dude who had a lot of buzz on him until, one, you get the drop foot against Anthony Smith, get kicked in the knee the wrong place. And then, this guy right here, AJ, this guy, Jamal Hill, Sweet Dreams, right? He did Jimmy Crute a little bit dirty. Let's put some respect on the light heavyweight champion's name. I'll just say this, man. Those are two losses that you shouldn't be ashamed of, and he's still ranked for a reason. But now you fight a guy who is just as powerful as you are, if not more powerful, and who can get things done really quickly here. So I will say, I'm going to give you my whole outlook of this matchup. Jimmy Crute can win this fight with just an early blitz. Alonzo Menifield can win this fight with just one counter strike off of his back foot. It does not matter, right? The one preface that I have is that Jimmy Crute, if we remember correctly, right? He'll walk forward, he'll hit you with some good shit, he'll drop some hooks on you, start playing that bob and weave, and then just do a crazy blast double and get the fight to the ground. If Jimmy Crute can make it past round one, I'm having a hard time seeing Alonzo Menifield winning this fight. But then again, let's not forget this guy, Alonzo Menifield, and going past round one, I mean, that's not something that he particularly likes to do. So if you're looking at his last 2 wins, both first-round knockouts, but then you got to think about it. One guy you beat, remember Mozarov, Askar Mozarov, the dude who was like the weird fake record, padded record? Okay. William Knight, you go to a decision against a William Knight. What did William Knight do, AJ? What did William Knight do in that fight? Tied him up. All right, brother. What are you seeing?
I mean, I'm with you, Derek. I think the earlier the fight ends, Alonzo Menifield all day, but the second that time starts clicking down, you just see the shift start differentiating because Jimmy Crute, is a dog. And like you said, he has that blast double, and nonetheless, will he do it on 2 good legs? This dude will do it when he has a torn ACL, drop foot and all. Yeah. Jimmy Crute don't give a fuck, all right? And being as the first fight of the night, open it up, it's going to be a very enthralled Jimmy Crute to try to get back to what he had because he was on a run. He was almost, he was getting a lot of hype behind him. Now, that being said, man, all you need is a little bit of excitement, a little bit of adrenaline. The next thing you know, you eat a big right hand from Alonzo Menifield and you're waking up with the boys in the back, So it's a very scary fight and a very exciting fight. I don't know if it's because it's early year. I feel like we can play around a little, Derek. I'm taking the exciting route right here, man. I am going Alonzo Menifield. I'm going the powerhouse, and I'm going with an early TKO. You can see it plus 250. I think it's going to be an interesting one if Jimmy Crute is willing to play with fire. If he's safe, smart, and makes it to round, 2.5, 3, and we really see history play itself out again, which we've talked about millions and millions of times with Alonzo Menifield, that gas tank does wear out no matter how much he works on it.
That's right.
That's how it's going to go, man. I mean, like I said, I'm looking for the early knockout, but the second those clocks start fading, Jimmy Crute, look for it, man.
Yeah, I will say you have to be kind of a fool to not at least see real value in that plus 250 TKO for Alonzo Menifield. Like, they call it the man atomic for a reason. He hits you, good things don't happen. But Jimmy Crute is a dude who I think is he's only really lost to the top of the top. Outside of Misha Serkinov, where he got Peruvian necktied in the first round, just early submission, he's only lost to the top of the top, right? But a couple of his wins, right? Like, to submit the submission guy, he Kimura'd Paul Craig, right? Like, come on, you know what I mean? Knocked out Sam Alvey, so what? Michael Alexachuk Kimura'd him, right? That dude is a fucking beast right there. The thing that really won me over, man, is him knocking out the dude who's making his UFC return on this card, Modestas Bukauskas. If you know what Modestas Bukauskas is capable of in terms of when he hits people, what happens to them, and you saw Jimmy Crute walk through this man like he was nobody's business, like, I was like, all right, Jimmy Crute, if he lands on Menifield, we can have some real problems too. But what I really do like, man, it's those submissions, man, the ground and pound and the submissions from Jimmy Crute. I think if he can get that top control, we're going to see some real problems. So I'm going to keep it, as simple as possible, man. Give me a submission win for Jimmy Crute. I don't know if he'll be able to knock out Alonzo Menifield, but if you could submit the likes of the Alexachuks, the Paul Craigs, you know what I'm saying, and start working your way that way, I think some good things are going to be happening here for Jimmy Crute. So that is my lone finish on the night. Jimmy Crute submission over Alonzo Menifield. Don't know if we'll see it happen, but I do think that is going to be an absolute fun one. And with that being said, that is your main card, UFC 284. This is going to be a fun one. But the fun doesn't stop at the main card because the fun actually starts, I guess I should say, a lot earlier than that. We got some sleepers for the people, AJ. Let's talk about it.
It's time for some fight night.
And if you ain't paying attention, you're going to sleep on me and I'm going to wake you up.
All right, brother. So I actually wanted to start with your sleeper because there was a lot of good sleeper fights that we could talk about. In my eyes, some of them aren't particularly sleepers just because I'm so aware of them, but I would imagine that the general populace would still be a little unaware, man. So you got an individual with that. I thought it was just interesting you picked this as a sleeper, man. Go ahead and get your sleeper off, man.
Man, I'm excited for this one, Derek. I'm also excited to hear why you think it's interesting, because this is going to be a very interesting fight, man. Jack Jenkins versus Don Shainis, okay? And why I picked this fight, both of these dudes are a little unknown. Don Shainis had his first UFC fight back in... Oh, it was still 2022, back a couple months ago. He gets submissioned early by Super Sadiq Youssef. That's how it goes. He looked ashamed. He looked put down, but he stepped into the ring. He got his 3-fight contract, and now it's time to prove what kind of man this dude is, all right? That being said, he's up against a dog, bro. A Jack Jenkins, who, again, is going to be fighting in his hometown territory, who has been known to be a powerhouse, who's been known to have heavy hands, who is going to be on the front foot with the flashiness, with the pizzazz, with all the, as the kids would call it, the riz, as all of the things that you want to see a very popular fighter come in. But when he got to his opportunity to fight in front of the boss, he also showed he's a well-rounded fighter. Yeah, he's got hands, but he can also take it to the ground. He can beat you up with some elbows. He can make this a bloody fight and take it all the way to the end of the bell and making you submit willingly. You know, not necessarily he's going to tap you out, but just making you stop fighting, putting the hands up, just trying to defend yourself and let the ref step in, which is, you know, a little bit of a submission as well. And why I'm excited to see this one, because will Don Shainis be shamed again? Will he be put down again? Will he have that same feeling, or is he going to stand up for himself and not let himself be bullied, not let the new dude come in here and take what should be his and actually make a name for himself and make the Shainis name shine a little bit right there? We're going to see, and that's why I have it as a sleeper. This one's going to be interesting. All the hype is behind Jenkins. We're going to see if there's a dog in Don. What do you think, Derek?
I think that, listen, the representation of this fight, it's going to be a fun fight. But Jack Jenkins, if there's one thing that we know he can do well, it's exactly what you mentioned, is that he can control the fight, he can make it real bloody, real nasty, and he can make you not want to fight anymore. And if he's able to do that to a Don Shainis, who he's not taken lightly at all, you heard it in his pre-fight presser, he was like, listen, dude, I cannot overlook this dude. Yeah, he got a shot to get to the UFC. He had to fight one of the best in Sadiq Youssef. You can't knock this man. You can't overlook him for that, right? But Jack Jenkins has a very clear path to victory, and that is wait for Don Shainis to come up, hit that big overhand right, or just try to hit him with some of that good shit. Go ahead, sweep underneath, take him down, and then you're done there, man. He's very Dagestani-esque in his control, man. His weaving of the legs, tying up the legs, and just not allowing you to move anymore. Oh, and by the way, standing up, he can knock you out too. Oh, he could beat you. He could stop you on leg kicks. He can, bro. This is going to be a fun fight. I just think that if he's smart, he does the right thing, you're fighting in front of your home crowd, get the win. Don't worry about the rest. Get the win. And if you're going to get the win, you got to fight smart. So that's why I say it's interesting. You know what I'm saying? However, I got a bona fide sleeper right here, brother. And there's a couple of them on this card, man. But I'm going to tell you this, man. I'm going to keep this so short and so sweet. All right, folks, check it out. You want to be entertained? Let me give you some entertainment right here. I'm talking about a featherweight scrap. I'm talking about Josh Kulabau versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. If you don't know anything about these guys, you're going to find out tonight. Melsik Bagdasaryan, one of my favorite prospects coming out of Armenia right now, just in general in the UFC. Karate style, bouncy. He will intimidate you and impose his will on you. He will stare at you. He will follow you. He will cut off the cage, hit you with some spinning kicks, hit you with some nastiness, stare at you, bounce up and down, and just head kick you and knock you out. Like, that's how he got his UFC debut. He was literally just standing in front, no setup, no, I'm going to feint the punch, literally just that bouncy Wonder Boy, Stephen Thompson style, and boop, knockout, right? If you look at his last fight, he had to go to a decision. But at the end of the day, this dude's striking is phenomenal. His wrestling get-ups, his BJJ get-ups are phenomenal. You cannot keep this dude down. It's very hard to keep him in one spot. But you're fighting a guy who is a little... He's very underestimated. When you look at his physique and you look at the love handles, you're like, Josh Kulabau, who is this guy? When you see what this man can do to people, when you got wins against Sting Choi, when you got wins against Shah-Yalan Nurdinbeka, I mean, come on, brother. He went to a split decision against Charles Air Jourdain, which was a little controversial, but neither here nor there. Only loss in his last five is to none only then Jalen Turner, man. A lightweight in Jalen Turner right there. So this is ultimately what I'm going to say, man. His UFC run has been phenomenal. Dudes discount him all day long. I do think Melsik Bagdasaryan is going to be a little too much for Kulabau in this fight, but I mean, that's what we've been saying the last 4 fights, and look at where we've ended up right there. So if you want to see two dudes going back and forth, absolute war with each other, and potentially someone getting their head knocked off their shoulders, you need to tune into this fight. If you're looking for the future of what the UFC is going to be bringing to the table, especially for this division at 145 pounds, which has a lot of stakes on it on Saturday night, you need to watch this fight. AJ, How can you go wrong with this matchup?
Derick, this is scrap amongst scrap. This is one of the ones that all the hardcores have circled, man. Folks, I cannot understate how exciting this fight's going to be. Derick was so excited for this fight, he put it in the Discord damn near Sunday night, man. Usually we'll get sleepers in Tuesday. I'm usually good at it on Wednesday. But Derick was on this one from he was like a dog sniffing out a truffle in the dirt, bro. And for good reason, because when I saw it get posted, I was jealous because this is going to be a fight, bro. This is going to be a scrap among scrap. I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can't highlight it enough, man. Especially when, like I said, Melsik Bagdasaryan is a beast in and of itself. But pairing up with Kulabau, sheesh, man. And folks, those are your sleepers. You heard it here first. You know what time it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, hit the subscribe button. And AJ, we're running out of time. We only have a couple of moments left. So in order to, just kind of, and that sounded so nice, that nice little whoosh. We've been missing it. But in order to, you know what I mean, kind of expedite this process a little bit, what I want to do here is I just want to run down a couple of fights and I want some very quick impression. Jamie Mullarkey, he gets a get back spot. And he deserves it, man. He deserves it. This is another Australian dude, maybe a New Zealander. Sometimes I mistake the two. Apologies. But Jamie Mullarkey gets Francisco Prado. And I'm not saying that this is going to be an easy fight by any stretch of the imagination, but if you look at his last couple of fights, he won his last fight against Michael Johnson. Before that, he had to fight Jalen Turner. Before that, Devontae Smith. Before that, Kama Worthy. Before that, Faraz Ziam. Not fun fights at all. These are all so tough fights, man. But now you get a dude who, this is a knockout guy, submission guy, finisher, but this is his UFC debut. So Jamie Mullarkey is the real A side here. What do you think of the matchup?
I was actually going to make this a sleeper of mine because it was Jamie Mullarkey versus Nasrat Haqparast, which presents a whole lot of challenges for Mullarkey, and they are not throwing him any easy matches. Haqparast gets hurt. We're going to see Prado step in. Prado step in. Going to make it a fun fight either way. This is truly an A-side matchup for Mullarkey. I'm looking for him to show up, show out, and really make this a star-studded performance from the A side on this one.
I hope so. You look at what Tapology is saying here. A lot of people think Prado could get the W. I mean, this dude is a finisher, undefeated, 11-0 finisher. So I'm not sitting here saying that this is a smash spot from Mullarkey, but in comparison to the absolute killer's row he's facing in the UFC, it's like this is the best you can get thus far. You know what I'm saying? So that should definitely be a fun matchup. All right, man. This is another dude who I'm just going to talk about one side of this because I've been waiting for this guy to fight for so long. This is going to be an unofficial sleeper. Cledson Rodriguez. Watch his fight. He's fighting Shannon Ross. Watch Cledson Rodriguez in this fight. Enough said. All right, man. Let's talk about the return of Modestas Bukauskas, man. After getting his knee absolutely caved in by Khalil Roundtree, he gets a get-back fight in the UFC, and it's not a fun one for him because he has to fight the surging Tyson Pedro, man. I think that Modestas Bukauskas is going to come back with a chip on his shoulder, but Pedro is by no means an easy get-back fight. So what do you think about that one?
Tyson Pedro is one of the weird fighters where he looks like he's going to be slow. He looks like he's a lumbering oof. And the next thing you know, this dude's popping jabs in your faces and big shots down the pipe. This Tyson Pedro is a very deceiving fighter, but Modestas Bukauskas is going to come back with kind of that get back, the little fire on his shoulders, man. I'm excited for this one. I'm kind of leading Bukauskas, but at the same point, never underestimate a Pedro, man.
Don't, but I am also leaning Bukauskas on this one. I think he's going to be hungry. He's going to be ready. And the last one I want to talk about, man, is a women's strawweight bout. This is Loma Lookboonmee versus Elise Reed. This is going to be a fun one because on the feet, as long as it stays on the feet, man, they're going to be trading back and forth. That's Elise Reed's probably best path to victory is striking, but you don't want to strike against the phenomenal Muay Thai striker in Loma Lookboonmee, who can also tie you up, trips, sweeps. I like Loma here, but I think size can definitely be an issue because Loma is a very undersized strawweight. Do you think that Loma will be able to run through Elise Reed? Is this going to be a showcase spot or a tougher bout than most people think?
I think this is going to be a tougher bout than most people think. I like Lookboonmee in this one, but I will put it with an asterisk because Elise Reed has the potential to really show up and get to that next level of the media eyes, man. Elise Reed can make a statement here, but it's against a very, very tough opponent.
Absolutely. With that being said, folks, kind of a smallish card for a pay-per-view. I'm not going to lie. It's like 13 fights or something like that. Normally we hit 15, sometimes 16, but either way, that's what we got, folks. So With that being said, looks like I have not updated the screen. The screen needs an update, folks. But either way, hit up my man AJ on Twitch, twitch.tv/SantaFeBomber. If you really want to do us a solid, I'm not going to say it again. This is the last time. YouTube.com/FreeThinkersClub. And on the Free Thinkers Club, guess what you can find? Well, you can find the Bloody Water Podcast. Come on, what are we talking about here, folks? Go ahead, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'm going to do a quick live count. AJ, man, this almost makes me upset because I'm going to pull it up right now. Oh, that's not it. Hold on. Bear with us, folks. This is going to be worth the wait right here. Would you look at that? 499. What are we doing here? Where's 500? We supposed to hit 500 like last month or something like that. 500 subscribers, folks. Give us at least one. What are we talking about? One subscribe gets us to 500 subscribers at the Bloody Water Podcast. Halfway to our goal of 1,000 subscribers. You get us there, we're going to be in some good standing, folks. Come on, let's go. AJ, get the people some last words before we hop out of here.
Folks, Derick already said it, man. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? But if you are subscribed, you're part of that strong 499. Make sure you go share with your friends. Get us a couple more subscribers right there. Push us to our goal. Also, make sure you go over, check it out. Check me out on Twitch. Santa Fe Bomber on all platforms. We're streaming over on Twitch 3 days a week, usually on the weekends as well. We're playing some games, but we're also talking fights. Jump in the chat. Hit me with what you want to talk about, though. It's a time for me and you and everybody to really communicate. Just have a lot of fun. We're out there, we're gaming, we're having a blast, we're talking shit. It's a great time. Come join us, and always, as always, make sure you subscribe, man. Drop it down, and when you do, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on all the platforms to let us know how much money you're winning, because I know, folks, you're hitting me in the text messages, but I feel weird sharing them. So make sure you do it where it's the shareable media. You know, we're out there being social. Make sure you drop a like.
Call it social media for a reason, right? But hey, folks, couldn't have said it better myself. Tune in this weekend, right? We will be back on Monday for the post show. You know what time it is. That's it for us, folks. And until next time, peace.